Learn to crochet with Potter and Bloom.
This is a video tutorial for this beautiful vintage stitch pattern that I found last week. It doesn't have a name. It comes from a book that doesn't use stitch names, but I think it really looks like the arcade stitch, only a bit more fancy. So consequently, I have called it the Fancy Arcade Stitch. It's a really simple 4-row repeat. It works up really beautiful. It is from the Vogue Dictionary of Crochet Stitches. I know I've never seen the Vogue Dictionary of Crochet Stitches before either. It is from 1987 and it's a really good book, apart from the lack of stitch names. See, no stitch names. Yeah, that's the only thing that I'm not keen on. And also, it gives all of the terminology in UK and US in the same description, and it just makes it a little bit confusing. Anyway, I managed to figure out how to work up this stitch, and I worked it up in this pretty pink yarn, and today I'm going to show you how to do it. So, grab some yarn, grab a hook, and settle in to watch me show you how to crochet the Fancy Arcade Stitch. So for this stitch you need to chain in multiples of 10 and then you add 7. Okay, so this is our setup row, and I am going to use UK terminology, but I will mention what the US terminology is, and also on my website the pattern will be written in both UK and US terminology. Okay, so I hope that helps you. For the setup row, we work 1 double crochet into the second chain from the hook, and if you're in the US that's a single crochet. Okay, and then we chain 1, we miss 4 stitches, and into the next stitch we're going to work a 5 double treble lace cluster. Now I've just given it that name to make it a bit easier for you to understand the pattern, because the pattern is a vintage stitch pattern and it's not written out in that kind of terminology, and it's a little bit confusing. But essentially a 5 double treble lace cluster is 5 double trebles separated by chain 2s, and they all go into one stitch. In the US that would be a 5 treble lace cluster, and I will show you how to do it. So you wrap the yarn around your hook twice, you miss 4, 2, 3, 4, and into that next stitch you work 1 double treble, which is a treble in the US, chain 2, another double treble into that same stitch, okay, chain 2, another double treble into that stitch, chain 2, another one. It seems to go on forever. Chain 2 and a final one. So you're creating a kind of lacy fan. And let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the 2 chain spaces in between. Okay, so that's a 5 double treble lace cluster, and this whole stitch is based around that. I did this tutorial yesterday and I went so quickly. I knew I had to do it again today. So after you've done your cluster, chain 1, and we miss 4 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the 5th stitch we work 1 double crochet, single crochet if you're in the US. We chain 1 again, we miss 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into that 5th stitch we work another 5 double treble lace cluster. I can hear the clock ticking and it's very soothing. One, two, three, 4. Okay, so now we've got 2 5 double treble clusters and they're separated by a chain 1 and a double crochet in the middle. So we do exactly the same, chain 1, miss 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, double crochet into the 5th stitch, miss 4 stitches, oh no, chain 1, miss 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another 5 double treble cluster. Okay, so that's your pattern until the end of your row. I will meet you at the end. Okay, so I've just completed my last cluster before the end. So you chain 1 after your cluster and you miss 4 stitches and you work your double crochet into, or your single crochet into the 5th stitch, and so you've got 5 stitches left. Now you chain 1, you miss the 4 stitches, and into this last stitch we're going to do sort of a half lace cluster. So we're going to work 1 double treble, 2 chain, 1 double treble, 2 chain, and 1 double treble to finish your first row. Okay, so you get a half fan at the end, which when I first did this stitch I thought was a bit confusing because I couldn't understand why I didn't have a fan, a half fan at this end, but all will become clear. You need patience, is what I told myself. We're chaining 1 and we're going to turn. Now that was our setup row. So we're now going to start this row by calling this row row 1, because there's going to be a 4-row pattern repeat, and this is row 1 of the 4-row pattern repeat. And the first thing that we do is work 1 double crochet into this first double treble. So that's a single crochet into your last treble from the previous round. So we've worked 1 double crochet into that first stitch. We're going to chain 3 and we're going to work 1 treble into this second chain 2 space here, and that's a double if you're in the US. So 1 treble into there. Then we are going to chain 2, and we're going to move on to the next fan, and we're going to work 1 treble into the first 2 chain space of the fan, which is here. And it's a treble, which is a double if you're in the US. So 1 treble into that first chain 2 space. We're going to chain 3, and then we're going to work 1 double crochet into the top of the middle double treble. So the very top stitch of your fan, you're going to work a double crochet. We're going to chain 3 again, and we're going to work a treble into the last chain 2 space, which is here. So you're leveling off your fan. If you can see, this is your treble, this is your chain 3, this is your double, chain 3 and treble. So you're almost squaring off your fan. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way along. So we chain 2, we work 1 treble into the first chain 2 space, chain 3, 1 double crochet into the top, chain 3, 1 treble into the end, the last chain 2 space. Okay, chain 2 and do it all over again. I will meet you at the end. So I'm right at the end of this row. I've just worked my double crochet into the middle double treble. I'm going to chain 3 and work my treble into the last chain 2 space, and then at the end we are going to chain 1 and we're going to work a double treble into this beginning stitch. It's sort of like the turning chain from the previous round, so it squares the end off nicely. So now you have something that looks like that. So that's row 1 completed. We are going to chain 7. And we're going to turn. And we're going to start row 2. So to begin row 2, we are going to match this other side. Oh, here it is. And we're going to do a half cluster, a half lace cluster. So we're going to work into this top double treble from the previous round, our first stitch. We're going to work 1 double treble. We're going to chain 2 and we're going to work another double treble. So that beginning chain 7 serves as a double treble and a chain 2. Okay, so we've got, it doesn't really look like it now, but it's a half cluster. Okay, so now we're going to start patterning again. We're going to chain 1. We're going to work a double crochet into the double crochet that sits in the middle of the last round's cluster. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to work our 5 double treble lace cluster into this chain 2 space here. Okay, so it's exactly the same as I showed you before. Double treble, chain 2, double treble, chain 2, see. Yeah, I filmed yesterday from an overhead angle, and when I watched the footage back, I realised that you couldn't actually see what I was doing. I was intent on filming from directly above. I'd got the idea into my head that it was absolutely necessary that I rigged my camera in some way so that I could film from directly above, and it was a complete disaster. It didn't work at all. You need to be at this slight angle so that you can see what I'm doing. But you live and learn, don't you? So I've worked a 5 double treble lace cluster into this chain 2 space, and I'm going to chain 1 and work a double crochet into the top of the double crochet from the previous round. Single crochet if you're in the US, chain 1, and we do it all over again. Okay, so that is row 2. I will meet you at the end. So when you get to the end of that row, you work your last 5 double treble lace cluster into your chain 2 space, and you're at that end where you've got your half cluster, and we chain 1 and we work 1 double crochet into that turning chain, and that finishes your row 2. You should have something that looks like that. It looks really pretty. And we're going to chain 5 and we're going to turn to start row 3. So for row 3, we're going to start off by working 1 treble into this first chain 2 space on your first cluster. Okay, that's a double if you're in the US, so 1 treble. It's the first thing that you do. And then we chain 3, and as before we work 1 double crochet or single crochet into the top of your cluster. Okay, chain 3 and 1 treble into the last chain 2 space. Okay, chain 2 and do it all again. So we're doing that squaring off system again. So it's always 1 treble into the first chain 2 space, 1 double into the middle, and 1 treble into the last chain 2 space, separated by a chain 2. So a treble, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I've gone in there wrong. Double, 1, 2, 3, and a treble. Okay, and chain 2. Do it over again. I'm using Aran weight yarn. This is Cascade 220. I think it is in the olive colourway, and I'm using a 6mm hook, and it's a clover hook. Came in a little gift set which I think is quite difficult to get hold of. People always ask me about them, and I always say look on eBay. I think you can get hold of the set on eBay. It comes with 3, one's blue, one's green and one's orange, and I think it's 4, 5 and 6mm, but they're lovely hooks. And the pink swatch that you can see in the top corner, that was using DK weight yarn and a 4mm hook. So you can use whatever yarn or hook you want to. Just make sure that your hook corresponds with your yarn. And it creates such a nice, what am I doing? Chaining 2. Let me tell you what I'm doing. So you've worked your treble, your double and your treble on your last full cluster. And then you do as per usual, you chain 2 and we're at that half cluster. But there's no panic, we just put 1 treble into the first chain 2 space. We chain 3 as usual. And then we work the... Oh, my battery died just as I was about to tell you what you do at the end. So you work your 3 chain as per usual, and then you work your double crochet into the 5th of the turning chain. If you remember, that turning chain was 7. Okay, so it squares it off nicely. Now we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn and we're going to work our final row. I am going to pray to the battery gods that my battery lasts long enough to finish this final row, because I am all out of batteries. They are all done. So we're going to work 1 double crochet into that first stitch, a single crochet if you are in the US. We're going to chain 1 and we are going to work our 5 double treble lace cluster, you guessed it, into this chain 2 space here. So it's quite, as you can probably tell, once you get the rhythm of the stitch, it is really repetitive in a nice way. And what I was saying before I got to the end of the row and realised I had to give you some instructions, it creates a really nice, what's the word? A really nice even lace pattern, if you know what I mean. It's like the arcade stitch. I think the reason I like that so much is because it's lace, but yet it's very structured. And this is exactly the same. So we do our 5 double treble lace cluster, we chain 1, we work 1 DC into the top of the previous round's DC, chain 1, and we do it all again, 5 double treble lace cluster into the next chain 2 space. So yeah, it creates a really structured lace, and this one I quite like because it's a bit looser, a bit more fancy, and it looks really nice on both sides. So it would make a lovely scarf if you were going to make a scarf design. I think it would also work well for things like jumpers or garments. It would look really nice as a lacy cardigan. And that is my personal opinion. You might be thinking, oh, there is no way. Chain 1, 1 double crochet in that double crochet, chain 1 and cluster again. There is no way I would wear a cardigan that looks like that, but I tell you what, that worked up into a cardigan would look lovely. And we just carry on. Praying that our batteries don't run out. Praying that you can understand what I'm saying. But don't worry if you can't really figure out what I'm saying. Everything is written down on my website. The link will be in the box below. So you do not need to worry. And also, if you've got any questions, just ask away. Remember that this is not my stitch. It's a vintage stitch pattern. It's a well-known one. It might have a name. If you know what its actual name is and its name isn't Fancy Arcade Stitch, then please let me know. Or if you've got a vintage stitch dictionary that does give this a name, do let me know, because I am always interested in that kind of thing. But for me, not having a name in the book that I got it from, and it looking so much like the arcade stitch, but fancy, I figured that Fancy Arcade Stitch would be quite a good name. You may disagree with me. I don't mind. We have reached the end. We've worked our last double crochet and we come to this end turning chain. And what we're going to do is chain one, and underneath this turning chain, we're going to do another half cluster. So we work one double treble, chain two, one double treble, chain two, and one double treble. And that is how you, let me move that out of the way because I'm clanking on it. That is how you crochet the Fancy Arcade Stitch. You just repeat those 4 rows. I hope that was useful. I hope you try this stitch out, and if you do, let me know. And thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.